Welcome to the Look Good, Move Well podcast.
And we're back. All right. You doing okay?
Yeah.
Yeah? You need a Mentos and a Diet Coke?
Yeah, maybe. No, that's the last thing I need.
Anybody know? If you don't know, let's tell them.
Okay.
What happens when you mix a Mentos and a Diet Coke?
Apparently a multicolored, disgusting explosion.
You get a lot of bubbles is what you get.
Okay.
But I saw a very interesting and astounding reel. TikTok thing, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Gentleman takes a fish tank, so it's a big glass case, puts a whole bottle of Coke into a balloon, and then a whole bottle of Sprite and a whole bottle of Fanta into separate balloons. So he's got 3 balloons in this thing. Then he pours like a gallon of Mentos in around it. And so he's not going to just get the little reaction. He's going to get the full reaction, and then he pops the 3 balloons. And the volcanic activity that is created from this combination of sodas and Mentos turned into a colorful pink and orange and yellow plume of foam that shot up from the video, from what it looks like on the video, about 20 feet in the air. You know, like maybe like 10 refrigerators worth of foam shooting up in the air. Yeah. And we were discussing that if you go to the movies and you get a soft drink and a pack of Mentos, that this is happening inside of your system. So the person that is very gassy at the movie theater might just have made
a critical error.
The critical error of buying Mentos and soda. So, yeah, note to self, don't get that. Okay.
Duly noted.
Well, this week we launched an ebook. We talked about that last week on the podcast, and we put out an email on Wednesday. That was very much, I want to give you a lot of credit for that, Satya. And we talked about on the last episode how we can periodically get, we have emails that go out that get a lot of responses, or, some are duds. Let's be honest. No, they're not duds, but they maybe don't get as many replies because we don't always ask for people to reply back.
Yeah.
They just take it upon themselves to reply because what they read really resonated with them and it really spoke to them in a unique way, or they wanted to share feedback about something that they would love to see next time or whatever. But we got a lot of feedback on this particular email. So first, could you, for those of you who haven't read it, shame on you. But if you haven't read it, Satya's got the recap, the 30-second recap for you. Ready, set, go.
Okay. Well, the email was on the topic of, am I doing too much? And it told a story of you having a conflict between your daughter wanting to go to the beach and you planning to work out, which illustrated the tension between someone who is really trying to prioritize their fitness, and maybe they even schedule it in and they arrange a time and they try to really show up for themselves and make it happen. And then life throws you a curveball and you can't do it without some tension or disappointing someone you love or disappointing yourself. So the email was a recap of that story and how you have discovered over the years that you could train 4 hours a day for the CrossFit Games, or you could train 45 minutes and you still look pretty much the same. And this is true for a lot of people when they train with intention and they have a purposeful program. You can still hold on to a lot of muscle mass and still look good and still move well and still do the things that you enjoy. So it ended with a question to our readers, which is, do you think you're doing too much? How long are your workouts? And what would happen if you did a little bit less? We got quite a lot of responses.
That was 85 seconds. It's very solid. It's way faster than I could read an email.
I needed more than 30.
I know you did. And we're not rushed for time. Hey, we're right at the beginning Nate hasn't even flashed the time check to us yet.
Yeah, we're doing great.
We barely even started. Yeah, and I think a couple things, we'll keep on this topic, but a couple things you said in there, I just want to reiterate. Putting in 3 hours versus putting in 60 minutes or 45 minutes or 4 hours, whatever, what makes your time in the gym successful is when, like you said, there's purpose to it. And purpose, you can only derive purpose in training when you have some plan. Like, you can't have a purpose without a goal or a target in mind. That's where, like, having a training plan is so essential. Having something that you can trust enough or you can just allow yourself to trust and say, hey, I'm doing this thing and I'm going to do it fully and I'm going to stick to it for 3 months or 6 months or a year. I'm going to do this thing and I'm going to measure my success with how consistent I can be and not look with how many minutes I trained, every single day. It's like, did I train 4 days this week? Great. Yeah, they were only 45-minute workouts, but you got 4 of them in. Look at you, And then maybe like 3 months from now, you're able to budget 60 minutes because you adjust some other things in your life, but you're motivated to adjust your other things in your life. So you have 60 minutes because you're like, I know if I have 60 minutes, I got this plan that I trust and I know I'm going to make the most of it. And so having purpose means having a plan and trusting that enough to really stay the course for longer periods of time. Anyhow, that wasn't meant to derail the conversation, but really I want to get into what were some of these responses? What were the themes? You sent me a document that you pulled all the different, you copy and pasted basically people's email responses that they sent in. And you're like, oh yeah, I got all these great responses. I was like, cool, send them to me. He's like, sure, I'll send you a document. Great. It's 29 pages long. I was like, what? Like, that's wild, And, so, in reading through those and pulling them, like what did you hear? What did you read in there? Were there themes that showed up? And what's the thing that's really like, what hit home about that message?
Yeah. One thing, there were a number of things that hit home, and I love when people really respond with their real emotions and stories, because that's so meaningful to know that we're making a connection on that level. And one of the things that stood out to me was someone who said, I don't want to look back on my life and have regrets about the way I spent my time. And that just cut so deep, because it could be true for not wanting to regret the way that you didn't show up for yourself and the way that you prioritized everybody and put yourself last. Or it could be not wanting to regret that you didn't prioritize the people in your life who you love instead of picking up weights and putting them down again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
That's heavy.
I know, right?
We're like looking at each other. We're like, Satya, I know you got a little something, a little of that going on, don't you?
Yeah, for sure. And just to connect on a personal level too, I'm a mom of 2 kids. I'm a single mom, and I have a super full-on job, and I constantly feel like I'm in the Chinese, finger trap where you can't get out. And it's just so painful to put something aside, whether that's myself or my kids. And I'm like, I don't want to pick, tell me how I can do it all. And that's one reason why this email is a lead up into the program that we just released, because we're trying to offer people real solutions to the conundrum of, I want to have this and I want to have this, and how can I make it work without feeling like I'm drawing the short end of the stick?
Yeah, that's real. Yeah, I definitely, I mean, the story of the beach, that's really an example of what happens all the time, in my life. And part of me believes I'm I'm going to get to whatever age and I'm going to regret something about, you know, like I'm not doing this perfectly, and I'm not going to make all the right decisions. I'm going to disappoint myself, or I'm going to disappoint, you know, the kids along the way. And, unfortunately, like my sort of how I was, not like how I was raised, but how I like interpreted the world and my place in the world growing up and to this point was like, I'm supposed to do things like right. I'm supposed to make the right decisions. I'm supposed to be kind of like, you know, not perfect, but like, you know, I'm a high performer. Like I don't make mistakes. I don't put myself in a lot of positions to make a lot of mistakes. Like that's been the process. And it's like, okay, well, I crossed a threshold a few years ago where I'm like, whoa, like I'm in a position now where I'm making mistakes all the freaking time. Like, and I can't control it as much as I want to, as much as I want to like, oh, like how do I like rewind the clock and get back to a place where I like have everything under control and I'm not making mistakes and I can be, you know, an expert and not look back and be like, well, I fucked that up, or I didn't do that right, or why didn't I choose this over that? And so that's like, you know, there's a mindset shift that has to happen for a lot of people that are in that. It's like, you don't want to reach 50s, 60s and be like, why did I do that in my 30s? Why was I like that? Because that does absolutely no good. You know, it's like, there's this like, you know, Tiger Woods like wrote some books, and like he's this obviously legendary, you know, performer in sport, and just the line out of the book that really stood out to me, like amidst all these other like gems of like, this is how I prepare, this is what I did, was sort of his like, when you hit a bad shot, it does, you know, like, and he's talking about golf. It's like, how do you deal with that? It's like, well, it's already, the shot already happened. I'm not thinking about it anymore. Like I'm thinking about how I'm going to move the ball forward from the next shot. Like okay, I'm in a bad situation. I got to hit the ball through the trees. Like I'm 100% thinking about the next thing to make the mistake that I just made better. And it's like, you know, that's so impressive to me. It's like, who really can like just totally erase what's behind them and just only look forward? It's a very powerful skill, and not one that I've certainly not mastered, and most people have not, because there's like, I'm scared that I'm gonna look back and feel like I made some mistakes. It's like, well, if you're Tiger Woods, you never look back because you're never thinking about that. You're just thinking about what's ahead of you, you know? Anyhow, there's definitely some mentality that, you know, accompanies that worry, that fear.
Yeah.
But then there's also like, well, what can you do to like, you know, set yourself up for success going forward if you know that you don't want to let yourself down and you don't want to let your loved ones down. You want to be able to do both. How can you be selfish but also selfless? And how do those live together? And that's really, that's the for somebody who's not getting paid to exercise, that's the thing that everyone runs into.
Yeah. I want to add one more piece to the puzzle here, which is that I think another theme from the messages that we received was that people know they have a certain time that they really can show up and give their all and put some effort in. And that's very valuable to them. And they understand the value of that mentally, physically, emotionally, to have that physical release and to feel like you're connecting to your body and you're keeping yourself healthy and setting an example for your kids. And I'm really obsessed recently with the concept of certainty and how we can conquer uncertainty in lots of different areas.
Yep.
And I think that a theme for people is that if this is my window, whether that's 45 minutes or 60 minutes, if I can make the choice to really carve this time and say, kids, I'm going to be with you in 45 minutes, then people really want to know that the time that they spent is well spent.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they don't want to be always feeling like they're making shortcuts and skipping things that are important and trying to rush and not being in the moment of their training because they're trying to follow a 60-minute program in 40 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, this was one of my biggest, the things I thought about the most when I used to run a group fitness gym was that people had 60 minutes. They were there to get in and get out. And in the early days, it was very common for us to go over by 5-10 minutes. And I'm like, hey, you get an extra 5 minutes. Like, I'm sorry, we're just working out more. Like, isn't that great? And it's like, no, it's not great because I have 60 minutes. That's it. Like, these 5 to 10 extra minutes that we went over, that means I'm letting somebody else down. I didn't realize it at the time, but in hindsight, it's like, yeah, that was horrible business practice to keep somebody there longer, especially those days where it like went way long. And then the person that's there for the next class is like waiting. They're like, hey, I can't start because you guys are not finished. We were amateurs, like big time. And then there was also the expectation of like, well, what will I feel like at the end of 60 minutes? And with CrossFit, when I ran that kind of program, one day the workout was this and one day the workout was that. And they had a totally different feeling. And yeah, maybe at the end of like 10 days of workouts, 7 of them had a pretty general feel like this, but 3 had a very not like unusual feel, whether it was like exceptionally hard or it just didn't really scratch the itch. It was like, that was a little too easy. It was like, they did super scaled Fran and super scaled Helen and that was it. And it didn't really give them the buzz. And those 3 days out of 10 were like a huge disappointment. It's like, this is my 60 minutes. Like this, I did not check the box. Like I needed to come and get like, I want that 7 out of 10 feel that I've been getting the last 7 days and I didn't get it today. And that's unacceptable. It's unacceptable in a business. That's why Orange Theory was like the answer to everybody who was like, I'm not doing CrossFit anymore. I'll do that. Because what was it? It was like consistent, knew what you were going to get. The feeling was the same. The time was on point. Everything, it's like, what's it called? F45?
Yeah, F45.
Same idea. It's like, I know what I'm going to get. Like, there's some variation, but like the feeling's always there. It's always the same stimulus and it's always on time.
Mm-hmm.
And that is so powerful. Now, eventually, efficacy and the actual training method like needs to also deliver on people's like long-term results, not just like short-term checking boxes. But this was just something I did not appreciate early on in my, business ownership and coaching career. Because I was just like, I'm just here coaching the fitness. Like that's what matters. And, if we put in enough time, like those 3 out of 10 days and those 7 out of 10 days, they all add to like something that's really important for you, but hey, now I'm older. I can understand that better. And, it's like, perhaps, like you said, like the certainty of like time and how it's going to feel and what it's going to do to me, like that is super, super valuable and maybe more valuable than the fitness methodology and the reps and sets itself, or the progression or the, whatever else, the fancy exercises.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I want to pose one more question to you based on one of the pieces of feedback or one of the responses that we got, which was someone who said, I know sometimes less is best, but how?
How?
Yeah.
Are you talking about the, well, yeah, Molly sent me an email like that. It was like this woman, and I'm not sure where she was from. She's like in her 40s, some young kids, and she's kind of on like the 90 minutes to 2 hours a day training, like follows persist, perform. And look, I do persist, perform. I've done it. I've done all the programs, right? You can do that workout in 60 minutes.
Yeah.
You just don't push it as hard on the weight training, and you do the 2x2 rule. You check some boxes here and there. You're efficient, you're on point, but like you can also do that workout in 2 hours if you want, hang out, warm up sets, extra warm up sets, get to your working weights, push your max intensity on every portion of the training, double down on the cool down, really get a great stretch, like do extra cardio at the beginning to really get do a 20-minute cardio warm up instead of the 3-minute warm up. Like, this is where she's at. And this is just what her mentality of this is what I need. This is what's created success for me for so long. I don't want to give that up. And she was really like, how do I do it? What would be your recommendation? Because lately I've been thinking that if I put in a little less time at the gym, that might be more, I might feel better in my life. Not just in my body. But I think I need to have a little bit better balance. I might be putting in too much time there. And perhaps she's not sharing the whole story, but there's some conflict that's going on. And the question is how do I do it? And, it's kind of like like coaching people who are been eating really low calorie for a really long time.
Mm-hmm.
It's what should I do? It's well, you should be eating probably twice as much food as you're eating right now, but let's not just jump to that tomorrow and start tomorrow. Let's not double the amount that you're eating tomorrow. Let's not cut the amount of workouts that you're doing in half every day, because that would be just too much and of a change all at once, that it would likely, you would feel with change, there's always going to be something that feels a little off. There's some adjustment that has to happen. And if you change too many things or too much all at once, that's way too overwhelming of a stimulus for your body and your brain. And you'll likely only feel the negatives and none of the positives in the short term, which is not encouraging, and it doesn't make you want to keep going. It's well, that didn't work. So it's somebody who you're I'm going to go on a bulk.
Mm-hmm.
And day one, you try and double the amount of calories that you're eating. And you're I just I got constipated, or I'm burping all day and I'm farting and I feel bloated. And the next day, same thing. You're I can't do a bulk. It's well, maybe instead of increasing by 1,000 calories, you could have increased by 100 calories this week, and 200 next week, and then 300 the week after, and just sort of slowly ramped it up. And if you started to feel something that was off, just sort of stay there for a little bit. Don't increase, And the same thing goes for dialing back your workouts. It's I was in that place earlier this year where I was, in the wintertime when there's not a lot happening out in the world, I'm going to train a little bit more, right? Because I'm pretty sedentary the rest of the time. I'm indoors, it's cold, we're not outside enjoying the world. So I'm doing tough cardio workouts in the morning, doing training in the afternoon, basically taking no days off, maybe one day of only cardio, but I'm training every day. And I'm man, I got to dial it back. So instead of cutting a lot of stuff out, I was okay, instead of doing my hard cardio workouts, I'm going to just do a walk. And I'm going to do my training. Okay, now I'm going to skip 2 days of walking, and I'm just going to walk 4 days a week, and I'm going to train, my normal days. Okay, I'm going to cut these 2 workouts down by this much. And now I'm just training, 4 days of hard weights, 1 day of a fun weekend pump session with my wife, and I'm doing a few walks a week, and that's it, and that's where I'm at today. It's the dramatic shift, but it happened slowly over the course of 7 months to sort of dial back some of my training volume in order to get more quality training sessions in and be able to spend more time on other things,
mm-hmm.
which is kind of what I was, I think, needing. And I think that's what she's, inquiring about. It's there's I got this instinct that I need something. And, thankfully, a lot of things have improved for me from a health perspective. I got off caffeine, which I was relying on a lot, and I was drinking a ton of caffeine, which was affecting my sleep. And I was always waking up at 4 a.m. Buzzing. And now I'm having more restful sleep. I'm sleeping until 5 every day. I'm don't feel this zing in the morning, I have to go and accomplish a million things. I can just sort of ease into my day. I have peaks of energy later in the day, which feels good. I'm more alert and engaged with my kids in the evening. I'm all these things have happened that were just sort of like, oh, that might be something that I need to address. And it's kind of wild to think that it's been like 7 months of me sort of slowly shifting that.
Yeah. And I think that that's so important to create room and space for yourself to step down or step up what you need to bit by bit. Because I think if you don't, the risk is that not only is it going to feel very shocking and unsustainable, but mentally you're going to be thrown into the doubt of, is this really the right path for me? Because the change is going to feel so extreme that then you lose trust in the process. But if you have some smaller steps that you can accomplish along the way, it gives you the time and space to reflect and say, oh, how did that feel to take that workout down by 15, 20 minutes today? Maybe half an hour. Hey, that feels good.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm still looking pretty good and moving pretty well. Okay, I'm going to try this another week or so. And you can really have time to receive some feedback for yourself to judge and see how it's going.
Totally. Were there any other themes that jumped out or any other big, takeaways from the responses that we got?
I think that it's important to note, and I think that this is something that people are feeling also, is that it's not necessarily about working out in the smallest possible window per day or per week. I think that it's about feeling really confident in the tools at your disposal so that you can create a rhythm and a routine that works for your life and your priorities.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that, and I heard somebody talking about it. They sent me a email. It was like, hey, have you heard of this program? And they have kind of like a concept of, these are your priority days or obligatory days. Like, what are your priority days in the week? And for training, those are the days you can put in 90 minutes, because let's be honest, like, if you have 90 minutes to train and they're focused 90 minutes, like, you can get more done than you can in 45 minutes. Like, there's just double the time, and it's not overkill to train for 90 minutes. Like, you can have a very well balanced training program that lasts that long. Matter of fact, the vast majority of people that follow Persist, our customers, train anywhere between 60 and 75 minutes on average every time that they train. So again, it's not about like you have to get down to like doing 45-minute workouts a day. Like, that's for some people, it's not for everybody. And but thinking about like, what are going to be those days where you put in a little extra time and you protect it, but then there are other days where you want to keep the consistency alive. You want to keep moving. I'd rather move like, yeah, I mean, I used to train so hard that we took 2 full rest days a week, like where I was like, I'm just going to sit on the couch. Like, I really am not going to do anything. Sundays came around. It wasn't like, let's go for a hike. It was like, see you later. Like, I'm hanging out here, going golfing with my brother and my dad. Was like, oh, can I take a cart? Like, I'm not walking. Like, I don't, but now it's like, I'd rather move every day, have, now I'm like down to like 4 days where it's like, I train hard 4 days and then 3 days where I just move. I just get some movement in and I try to make it as fun and enjoyable as possible. And like tomorrow, my wife and I are going to wake up and we're going to like do a workout before we take the kids to their swim lesson. But it's not going to be like, we're not going to like hammer out something crazy. It's like, hey, we got 45 minutes. Let's go do a little pump session out in the yard and let's move together. Let's connect. And then, we'll go and take the kids like, out for the day. And that's low pressure. But I want to have tools. I want to have resources. I want to know how to approach those 45 minutes so that, I get something of value from it. And it's not going to be that day that's going to leave me sore for the rest of the week. That's the split squat day from Monday. But so that's just I think that kind of is in line with what you're saying and how people can think about it. It's like, yeah, pick your days that are going to be like, you're really going to set aside time for those days. And that's fun. Like, that can be, that's, for you, I feel like that's the days you're in here, Wednesday and Friday. It's like, I see you putting in long, tough sessions in here, and I imagine it's a lot easier to get amped up for that than when you're, at home in your basement and, doing your lifting by yourself. So those are your priority days. And that doesn't mean you don't train the rest of the week. It just means that it's like of maybe a different level or different caliber.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, that's all I got. What do you want to close them out? You want to close it out?
Yeah, I do. I want to say to people that we really value everybody who's on our email list because that's a way that we can connect with you and hear what's important to you. And it's not just about us blabbing all the time and trying to put things in front of your face that you don't care about. It's about having a conversation and really addressing fitness topics that are important to people and can give you some value for free. So you can sign up for that at functional-bodybuilding.com/free.
That's right. I don't know how many other communities that you're a part of that you engage in actual meaningful conversations that, talk about things from training to the conflicts that we all approach in life around the tension of letting somebody down or letting yourself down. But that's what we're here for too. So always hit us with your suggestions, topics, questions, things that you want to hear about. This is what drives all the content that comes from this channel. Same thing with this podcast. So whatever platform you're listening on, if you haven't gone over to YouTube and checked us out at the Functional Bodybuilding YouTube page, these episodes are videotaped and live there. It's kind of fun to connect. Hi. And drop us a comment down there. Tell us what you want to hear about in future episodes of the podcast. And hit us a like and drop us a comment that just tells us that you're out there because we want to know who's listening.
You just broke every rule in marketing. One call to action.
One call to action.
But it's fine. Do all that, people.
And do it all. Take care.
All right. We'll see you next time.